All right, let's dive into one of the most famous tragedies ever, Sophocles Oedipus Rex.
It's a classic.
It is, but we're going deep into some analysis to see why it's still so powerful today.
Yeah.
Even though most people already know the basic story.
Right, like we know the ending.
Exactly. It's like figuring out how a magic trick works, even after you've seen the rabbit,
Yeah.
pulled out of the hat. But you know what? Understanding those techniques,
Mm-hmm.
it can make us better storytellers ourselves,
That's a great point.
whether we're writing or just, trying to be captivating at a dinner party.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
I mean, think about it. What Sophocles does is he takes this well-known story, a man destined to, marry his mother, kill his father.
Heavy stuff.
Yeah, but he still creates this, deeply complex and suspenseful experience.
It's not just about the twists and turns.
No.
It's about the psychology and the questions about fate and truth and all that.
Exactly. It makes you think,
And speaking of truth, one of the things that just grabs you from the start is that dramatic irony.
Oh, yeah.
Sophocles is a master at that. Like that early scene where Oedipus is vowing to find and punish the murderer of King Laius.
Shells.
Right? It's like, oh my gosh. Just because we, the audience, we know.
We know.
He's basically cursing himself.
It's brilliant. And it's not just for suspense either.
Right.
It reveals something deeper about Oedipus,
Oh, interesting.
Like this vow foreshadows his determination no matter what.
To find the truth.
Yeah, even if it destroys him, that one moment, it sets the stage for the whole tragedy.
Okay, but hold on. Could you also see that as a kind of arrogance on Oedipus's part? Like, he's so sure he's right that he doesn't even consider.
That it could be him.
Yeah.
That's a great point, actually.
Right?
It's true, he has a strong sense of justice, but there's also that, that hubris.
Yeah.
Pride before the fall. Sophocles shows us the flaws even in his hero.
Which makes him more human, right?
Absolutely.
He's not just some mythical figure.
Right.
He's relatable, even with his, tragic flaws.
Exactly.
Speaking of flaws, let's talk about how Sophocles uses the theme of sight and blindness.
Ooh, yes.
It adds so many layers to the story.
It's so powerful. You have Tiresias, the blind prophet, right?
Right.
Who can see the truth about Oedipus's past.
Even though he's physically blind.
Right. And then Oedipus, who's so proud of his intelligence, his vision, but he's blind to who he really is.
It's like Sophocles is saying, look closer.
Yes.
There's more than meets the eye.
Exactly. And it's not just physical sight. It's about, intellectual and emotional blackness, too.
Oh, I see.
Oedipus, he solved the riddle of the Sphinx, but can't see the truth about himself.
Wow.
It's brilliant, showing that even the smartest people
Can be blind.
can be blind to them flaws.
Yeah. Makes you wonder what we're blind to in our own lives, right?
Right. What truths are we avoiding because they're just too painful?
It's kind of unsettling.
Yeah, and that discomfort, that unease, that's what makes Oedipus Rex so compelling, I think. It forces us to confront these questions, look at our own blind spots.
Okay, so we have this suspenseful plot, these characters with their secrets and flaws. But what about the language itself? How does Sophocles' writing style contribute to the impact?
Oh, this is where it gets really interesting. Sophocles was a master of language. He uses it to create these vivid, emotionally charged moments.
Right.
It's not just what they say, but how they say it.
I see, yeah.
Like when Tiresias gives his prophecies, they're cryptic, full of double meanings. It's like the ambiguity of fate.
Yeah, it's like he's dropping these little bombshells
Yes.
of foreshadowing that we have to try and decipher.
Exactly.
And the way he uses imagery, like when he describes the plague, it's like you can feel the suffering.
Oh, absolutely. He doesn't hold back.
Right.
Those graphic descriptions, they heighten that sense of urgency and despair.
And then Oedipus's lines, they're full of, anguish, self-pity, anger.
Yeah, mirroring his emotional roller coaster.
It's like Sophocles isn't just telling a story, he's crafting an experience.
Yes.
Using language to create a world that's both beautiful and terrifying.
Exactly.
He's playing with our emotions, keeping us on the edge of our seats, even though we might know how it ends. It's amazing to think these techniques, from thousands of years ago, are still effective today.
I know. It's a testament to the power of good storytelling. And the themes, the quest for truth, the struggle with fate, it's timeless.
It is. So we've established this play as pretty darn amazing.
It is.
But how does Sophocles build that suspense, even though we know the ending?
Well, he's a master of pacing,
Yeah.
He reveals information gradually.
Okay.
Like a detective piecing together a case.
I like that.
He drops hints, raises suspicions, throws in twists and turns. Like when Jocasta starts to realize the truth even before Oedipus.
Oh, that scene where she's begging him to stop asking questions.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
You can feel her desperation.
And the way he uses Tiresias, dropping those cryptic warnings, foreshadowing Oedipus's downfall,
So good.
it's brilliant.
It's like you're watching this slow-motion train wreck.
Yeah.
You can't look away, you know what's coming, but you're still completely engrossed.
Exactly. And it's not just the plot, the characters are so central to that suspense, too.
Right, they all have their own secrets, their own motivations, their own journey toward the truth.
Exactly. You have Oedipus driven by his need for justice, knowledge, Jocasta grappling with, this horrifying prophecy potentially coming through,
Right.
and Tiresias who sees what others can't.
It's like their interactions are like a pressure cooker,
Yes,
slowly building tension.
until it explodes.
And we can't forget the chorus, adding that commentary, foreshadowing, amping up the intensity.
Oh, the chorus, it's like they're the voice of the audience.
Yeah,
Reflecting our hopes, fears, reacting to the drama.
right. They remind us we're not just watching.
Yeah.
We're participating. Okay, so masterfully crafted plot, complex characters, a chorus.
Mm-hmm.
What else is Sophocles doing to keep us hooked?
Well, besides all that, he really focuses on the psychology of his characters. We're not just seeing what they do.
Right.
We're inside their heads.
You see that most with Oedipus, right?
Oh, absolutely.
He goes from this confident king to this broken man,
Right.
realizing he's fulfilled the prophecy he tried to avoid.
And it's not just him.
Yeah.
Jocasta's journey, her disbelief, denial, and then that crushing realization, it's equally compelling.
Right.
Sophocles makes us empathize with their pain, makes us grapple with the same moral questions.
It's like he's saying, hey, this isn't just ancient Greece. This is
us.
Yeah, this is the human condition.
Exactly.
The choices we make, the consequences we face. And that's something we can all connect with, no matter when we live.
Absolutely. The universality, that's what makes Oedipus Rex such a masterpiece.
It really is. So we've covered a lot, but before we move on, I want to go back to something you said about the psychological stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Could you talk about that a bit more? I'm intrigued by how Sophocles uses those inner struggles to build the suspense.
Oh, that's a great question. One way he does that is with this technique called stigomythia.
Stigomythia.
Yeah, it's where the characters have this rapid-fire dialogue,
Okay.
often contradicting each other or showing opposite emotions.
Interesting.
It creates this tension,
Yeah.
and highlights the conflict both within the characters and between them.
Can you give an example? I'm trying to picture it.
Sure. Think about when Oedipus confronts Tiresias,
Okay.
demanding to know who killed Laius.
Uh-huh.
Their exchange, it's full of jabs, accusations, pronouncements. It's electric.
Wow.
This technique, it moves the plot, but also reveals their personalities, their changing states of mind.
It's like a verbal duel.
Exactly. And as the play goes on, it gets even more intense.
Oh, wow.
Reflecting their desperation, the escalating conflict like a pressure cooker about to blow.
This is fascinating. I'm seeing Oedipus Rex in a whole new light. It's not just a tragedy.
Right.
It's a psychological thriller, a masterpiece of suspense, and a timeless story about what it means to be human.
And we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to uncover.
I can't wait to dive in deeper.
Me too. So welcome back, ready to keep unraveling the genius of Sophocles.
Absolutely. We've talked about the dramatic irony, the imagery, how he creates suspense.
Right, right. But let's go deeper into the psychology of the play. Specifically this idea of anagnorisis.
Anagnorisis. That sounds intense.
It is, but it's also really cool.
Okay, so break it down for me. What does it even mean?
Basically, it's a Greek term for recognition or discovery.
Okay.
It's that moment in a tragedy when the main character suddenly realizes, their true identity, their situation.
Oh, I see.
And often that leads to their downfall.
Right, right.
And in Oedipus Rex, this moment is, well, it's earth-shattering.
You're talking about when Oedipus finally realizes he's the one who killed Laius?
Yes, and married his mother.
Whoa.
That's the climax of the whole play. It's the slow burn as he gathers evidence, puts the pieces together, and then, damn, the realization hits him like a ton of bricks.
It's not just like an intellectual understanding.
No.
It's this huge emotional earthquake.
Exactly. His whole world, everything he believed in, just crumbles.
Yeah.
And Sophocles doesn't shy away from the raw emotion of it.
Right.
The cries of anguish, the self-blinding, it's almost unbearable to watch, but you can't look away.
It's intense. It makes you think about those times in life when, you discover something about yourself or your past that just changes everything.
Totally.
It might not be as dramatic as Oedipus, but those moments can still be really disorienting, painful.
Absolutely. And I think that's why this play still resonates with us today. It's exploring those universal human experiences.
Of confronting tough truths.
Yes. Dealing with guilt, shame, searching for meaning even when you're suffering.
It's like Oedipus's journey becomes a reflection of our own struggles.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the deep psychology of it all.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the play's broader relevance?
Hmm.
Like, what can we actually learn from this ancient Greek tragedy that helps us in our own lives?
That's a great question. One of the biggest takeaways, I think, is the danger of hubris.
Hubris.
That excessive pride, that often leads to a downfall.
Right, right.
Oedipus was so blinded by his intelligence, his righteousness, he couldn't see the truth until it was too late.
The classic cautionary tale.
It is. It reminds us to approach life with humility, to be aware of our blind spots.
Yeah, it's like that saying, the bigger they are, the harder they fall.
Exactly. Oedipus was so sure of himself, so determined to solve the mystery, he never considered he might be the problem.
And that's something we can all fall into, right?
Oh, absolutely. We get caught up in our own perspectives, our goals, and we miss the bigger picture.
The consequences.
Yeah. Oedipus Rex reminds us to step back, to question our assumptions, to be open to being wrong.
It's also a reminder that knowledge can be, well, dangerous.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right.
Yeah.
Oedipus's pursuit of the truth led to his destruction. It's a paradox.
It is.
We crave knowledge, but sometimes it comes at a great cost.
Especially in today's world, right? We're overloaded with information.
We're constantly bombarded with news, opinions, data. It's easy to feel like you have to know everything.
But Oedipus Rex warns us, sometimes ignorance is bliss. Some truths are better left buried.
So how do we balance that?
Hmm.
Seeking knowledge without, falling into that trap.
I think it goes back to humility.
Okay,
Approaching knowledge with humility means knowing our limits,
right.
admitting we don't have all the answers, and being open to having our beliefs challenged.
It's like we need to be skeptical,
Yes,
to question what we see, dig deeper, consider different viewpoints.
exactly. Blindly accepting information without thinking critically can be dangerous.
Just like it was for Oedipus, it makes you think about all the misinformation out there today.
Oh, absolutely. People just accepting whatever they see online or hear from certain figures without questioning it.
It's like we're all susceptible to becoming Oedipus, taught in a web of lies and self-deception.
Right, and the consequences can be huge. Oedipus Rex is this timeless reminder
Of what?
of the importance of critical thinking, media literacy, having the courage to challenge those in power.
Okay, so we've got hubris, the dangers of knowledge, critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
What else can we take away from this ancient text? Why is it still relevant today?
One aspect that's often missed is this theme of free will versus fate.
Ooh, interesting.
It's a question that's been around forever, right? How much of our lives is predetermined? How much control do we actually have?
Big questions.
Yeah. And Oedipus's story seems to suggest that fate has a pretty tight grip.
But Oedipus makes choices, right? He decides to leave Corinth, he faces the Sphinx, he investigates the murder. That's free will.
That's the paradox. He does make choices, but they're often driven by his flaws, his pride, his impulsiveness, his thirst for knowledge. It's like his fate is woven into who he is.
So you're saying we're all just puppets on strings, our choices don't matter. I don't know if I buy that.
I wouldn't go that far. I think Sophocles is saying it's more complicated than that.
Okay.
It's this interplay between fate and free will. We might not be able to escape our ultimate destiny, but the choices we make shape who we become. They affect how we get there.
So like we're all driving down a predetermined road, but we can choose how we drive.
Exactly. We have control over the steering wheel, the speed, the route we take, and that's where responsibility comes in.
Responsibility. How does that fit in with fate and free will?
Well, if we have some choice, then we have to own the consequences of those choices.
Okay, yeah.
Oedipus tries to deny his role, blame it all on fate, but in the end, he accepts responsibility.
Even for the things he did without knowing.
Yes, and that's a powerful message.
It is, especially today when it's so easy to blame others or circumstances for our problems.
Exactly. Sophocles is saying, hey, even if you were dealt a bad hand, you still have to play it the best you can. You have to accept the consequences.
It's like life is messy, we screw up, but how we deal with those screw-ups, that shows our true character.
Exactly. That's why Oedipus Rex is so powerful. It speaks to our fears, our struggles with choice and responsibility, our search for meaning in a world that can feel chaotic.
And it does all that while keeping us on the edge of our seats, even though we know the ending. Sophocles was truly a genius.
Oh, absolutely. He understood the human heart. He knew how to use drama to explore the biggest questions about life, fate, truth.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot. Dramatic irony, suspense, free will, fate, responsibility.
We have.
But there's one more thing I want to touch on.
Oh, what's that?
We've talked about the individual characters, their roles in the tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the bigger picture? The social and political context of the play?
Ah, yes. That often gets overlooked.
What does Oedipus Rex tell us about the society it was created in?
Well, it's not just a personal tragedy, right? It reflects the anxieties of ancient Athens.
Like what?
Well, one big theme is leadership and responsibility.
Right, Oedipus is a king.
Exactly. He's responsible for his people. The plague, it's seen as both a natural disaster and a sign that he's failed as a leader.
So it's saying that a leader's actions have big consequences.
Huge consequences. And this was a big deal in Athens, a democracy where citizens held their leaders accountable.
I see.
Oedipus Rex is like a warning about unchecked power, a reminder about civic responsibility.
It's amazing to think how this play would have resonated with the Athenian audience.
I know, right? They were watching their own fears and hopes play out on stage.
Yeah, and that's probably why it still resonates with us today.
It is. It's not just about one man's fate. It's about the human condition, leadership, the individual versus society, the search for meaning and justice. It's timeless.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot in this part.
We have, from anagnorisis to the broader social and political themes, it's been a good discussion.
It have, but there's still more to uncover. Welcome back. It's fascinating how this play, written so long ago, still sparks so much discussion.
I know. It's amazing.
We've talked about the suspense, the characters, the historical context, but I'm curious, why are we so drawn to stories about hidden truths?
That's a good question, even when those truths are painful.
Yeah, it feels like it's just part of human nature.
It might be that innate curiosity, We want to understand the world, even the parts that are uncomfortable or scary.
Right. It's like we can't resist a good mystery, even if the solution might shatter our illusions.
Absolutely. There's a thrill in uncovering what's hidden, even if it's something we'd rather not see. But I think it's more than just curiosity, though.
What do you mean?
There's also something cathartic about these stories.
Oh, interesting.
Like we watch Oedipus struggle with his fate, confront his past, accept responsibility for what he's done.
Even the things he did unknowingly.
Right, and that can be really powerful for us as viewers or readers.
Yeah, it's like we're coaching our own fears through these characters, facing our own dark sides safely.
Exactly.
So maybe that's why these stories have lasted for so long. They give us a way to explore these dark parts of being human without having to experience them directly.
It's a safe way to confront those fears, those consequences. And in doing so, it helps us make sense of our own lives.
Our own struggles, our search for meaning. It reminds us we're not alone.
Right.
Okay, but here's the big question. How does Sophocles make Oedipus Rex so gripping even when we know the ending? It's like watching a magic trick you've already seen. You know what's coming, but you're still on the edge of your seat.
Sophocles was a master of his craft. He uses all these techniques to keep us engaged. One is pacing. He takes his time. He reveals information gradually, like a detective bit by bit, putting the pieces together.
It's that slow burn you mentioned before.
Yeah, exactly. You know something bad's going to happen, but the how and the when, that's what keeps us hooked.
And then there's that dramatic irony.
Oh, yes. We know more than Oedipus does.
Right, we see him walking toward his doom, and we can't do anything to stop it.
It's like we're part of the tragedy ourselves, watching with this sense of dread, but also like it has to happen.
It's a very strange feeling. Unsettling, but you can't look away.
And then the language. It's so powerful, so evocative.
Right. It's beautiful, but also terrifying.
Sophocles uses these vivid descriptions of suffering, violence. He doesn't sugarcoat anything.
I remember that scene where Oedipus describes blinding himself.
Oh, it's brutal.
It's so raw, so painful. You can't help but feel it.
Yeah, his language just cuts through everything, makes us confront the reality of what's happening.
But there's also beauty in it, a kind of poetry that makes it more than just entertainment.
Absolutely. It's like he's taking this horrible suffering and transforming it into art, showing the power of language to express even the deepest, darkest emotions.
That's a really good way to put it. It makes you realize why this play is considered a masterpiece.
It really is. It grapples with these huge universal questions about fate, free will, guilt, truth, but it does it with such skill, such depth, that it goes beyond any one time or place.
So as we wrap up our deep dive, what's the one thing you hope people take away from Oedipus Rex?
That's tough, but if I had to pick one, it's that this play isn't just about Oedipus. It's about all of us.
That's a good point.
It's a mirror to our own humanity, our flaws, our choices.
It challenges us.
It does. It reminds us that seeking the truth can be dangerous. It encourages us to face our fears and embrace life's complexities, even the painful parts.
I think that's a great takeaway. We've really explored this incredible play today, uncovered its secrets, analyzed its techniques, thought about its themes.
It's been a journey.
It has. Thanks for joining us on our deep dive into Oedipus Rex. We'll be back soon with more fascinating topics to explore. Until then, keep those minds curious.